Good morning, you guys. It is Thursday, the morning after my birthday. I'm just getting myself ready. We are gonna go have dinner at my mom's later on today. I tried to film a little bit yesterday, but I didn't get as much filming done as I wanted to. Firstly, I would just like to say thank you to all of the really sweet birthday wishes. I've seen a lot of you guys in the comments on my last vlog I posted Tuesday, so thank you guys for those. Basically, yesterday my intentions were I really wanted to do like a sit down video and like go over like 29 things that I've learned in my 29 years, like kind of video I've seen a lot of people do, and I wanted to do one of those. But I got to thinking about it, and I think since I am more of a weight loss channel, I am going to do that, but make it weight loss related. So 29 things I have learned in my 29 years, specifically in regards to weight loss, because for the past 10 years, weight loss has been an ongoing battle that I have been facing, and I have been very successful only in the past year. So I've learned a lot in the past year, but also in the past 10 years of trial and failure in losing weight. I made a little list on my phone, and I'm just gonna kind of go over 29 things, and these are in no specific order. I'm just gonna go over these while I get my face ready. I know my eyebrows are already done. That's because I got started and then I thought I should film this. So, number one on the list, start where you're at. And what I mean by this is basically in my mini trials at trying to lose weight in the past, I was the type of person who would decide I was going to be doing whatever specific diet or thing that was going to help me lose weight, and I would go balls to the wall right off the bat, do a complete 360 on my diet and exercise, and I would sustain that for maybe a week, maybe 3 days, and then I would inevitably crash and burn and rinse and repeat. So I think a more sustainable approach to weight loss is to start where you're at. If you are a person who eats takeout multiple times a week or even multiple times a day, like I was at one point, it's not necessarily realistic that you are going to go from one extreme to the other, that you're going to go from eating McDonald's 5 times a week to eating it 0 times a week. Like maybe you cut back to eating takeout once, maybe twice a week if you're eating it multiple times a week. If you're eating it multiple times a day, maybe we cut back to once a day. And you know, maybe that sounds a little bit ridiculous to some people, but honestly, like in my case, when I was at my heaviest weight of 343 pounds, little changes like cutting out or cutting back on fast food and takeout and sodas really made a huge difference, because to be as heavy as I was consuming a ton of extra calories every day. So to cut back even a little bit, I mean, my body would immediately respond to that. So it really does not take huge monumental changes, especially in the beginning, to start losing the weight. So start where you're at. Number 2, take lots of before pictures and video. I would say specifically video, because I didn't take enough before video footage. And I feel like when I do look back at the video footage that I do have when I was bigger. Comparing those videos to videos of myself now is like, you can really see the dramatic change in just how I carried myself, and so it's really cool to see that in action. Photos also are great though, so just take them and keep taking them even as you're losing weight. Continue to take them, because you'll hit different stages of your weight loss journey, and you know, even if you have lost a bit of weight and you're thinking this is my after, really it could just be your during. And if you continue to lose weight, you'll want to have lots of pictures, so take pictures. Number 3, take your measurements at the beginning of your journey and periodically throughout. For me personally, I measure my whole body on the 1st of every month, and I compare my measurements and track my measurements every month, like comparing them on a calendar, and I write how many inches I lost and how much weight I lost for each month. And that is a really great visual way for me to just be able to look at a calendar and see, okay, these are the months I did really good, and maybe this month I didn't do so well. What was different about this month? And you know, just being able to have something to kind of reflect and look back on. But definitely take your measurements and keep track of those, because the scale is not the only way to measure success in a weight loss journey. For number 4, kind of going in the same area, do not get too attached to the number on the scale. I know it can be really triggering to be trying your best and doing all of the things you should be doing, and you weigh yourself and see the scale has gone up or it hasn't moved for a couple of weeks, and that can be so discouraging. But it's important to keep in mind that the scale is really just a number, and it doesn't take into account all of the different things that go on in our bodies on a daily basis, like water retention, hormone fluctuations. Especially as a woman, we have our cycles, which can lead to us retaining fluid at certain times of the month. And so the scale doesn't take any of that into consideration. So while I do weigh myself regularly, I only weigh once a week, because I don't like to get too hung up on the number. And even if the scale goes up during a week, which it will, inevitably it will, you will not lose weight every single week. There will be weeks where you gain or maintain your weight, and that's just the reality of it, and that's okay. So again, do not get too attached to the scale. Number 5 is that your weight will come off the quickest in the very beginning of your journey, and it will slow down after that. In the very first month of my journey back in January, I lost over 26 pounds my first month, and that was because my body was so used to the unhealthy lifestyle that I was living that when I made small changes and just started moving my body more, I started going to the gym consistently and eating in a calorie deficit, my body was just like whoosh. I'm sure most of it was water weight, but still, since then my weight loss has varied. On average, I'm losing right around 7 to 6-ish pounds a month, and I would say that is more typical and more of a healthier, sustainable rate of weight loss. But yeah, just know that in your first couple of weeks you will probably drop the most amount of weight the quickest, and it will slow down after that. And that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, it's just that your body in the initial stages is releasing mainly a lot of water, because we tend to hold on quite a bit of water, especially when we are maybe eating and drinking foods that are not super great and full of sodium and stuff. So number 6, I highly recommend looking at weight loss from a month by month perspective rather than like a week by week or even a day by day perspective, because again, your weight will fluctuate throughout the month. As long as you see that your weight is going down month after month, that is what is important. Number 7, just because you have not seen your weight move down in 2 or 3 weeks does not mean you are necessarily in a stall. I have been guilty of this where I will see the scale kind of not really moving much or moving up and down the same couple of pounds for a couple of weeks, and I start to think that I have hit a stall and that I need to adjust my calories or cut my calories more in order to start losing weight again. This is not necessarily the case. Sometimes it's, again, just a matter of waiting it out. If you adjust your calories or drop your calories or eat less every time you see that the scale isn't moving down for a couple of weeks, you could ultimately end up cutting your calories super quickly, and that will make it harder to keep sustaining the weight loss if you're cutting your calories every 3 weeks just because the scale isn't moving as quickly as you would like it to. I usually find that if I just hold it out for a couple of weeks or a week more than when I think I'm in a stall, usually the stall will break and the scale will go down. That being said, if you do actually hit a stall and notice that your weight has not changed or has gone up over the course of a month, then it might be time to consider adjusting your calories. This is with the caveat that you need to be honest with yourself. If you have not been in a true calorie deficit, if you have not been tracking your calories and like knowing that you are eating a certain number of calories and the scale isn't moving even though you're eating that much, then obviously you would be able to determine you are truly in a stall. If you, on the other hand, are not always in a calorie deficit and not tracking and maybe overeating on the weekends and stuff, then maybe it's time to try and tighten up a bit on those times when you're a little bit lax and maybe track your calories for a couple weeks to see, is this truly a stall or am I just not in an actual deficit? Which brings us to number 9. In order to lose weight, you have to be in a calorie deficit. Now, there are many ways to go about being in that deficit, and I'm not here to tell you what is the best way. The best way is whatever way works for you. However, at the end of the day, in order to lose weight, you have to be eating less than your body is burning. And so yeah, if you're not losing weight, it's because you're not in a calorie deficit. Number 10 is do not overcomplicate things. It can be really easy when you're starting out a weight loss journey and you're learning everything about how to lose weight. You get so many different tips and tricks and recommendations, and it can be really overwhelming, and you can easily fall into the trap of making it complicated, making it more complicated than it needs to be. And ultimately, that is just going to make it less likely that you'll be able to stick to these lifestyle changes that you need to stick to lose weight and ultimately to keep the weight off. So especially when you are first starting out, keep it simple. You don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Just stick to the basics. Number 11 is do not crash diet. Do not go from eating over 3,000 calories a day to 1,200 calories right off the bat. All that is going to do is, first of all, make you hungry and less likely to stick to your diet. And secondly, it's going to ruin your metabolism, ultimately just making it more difficult for you to continue to lose weight. So when you're first starting out, a good starting point is anywhere from 300 to 500 calories a day deficit, and that could be a daily deficit, or you could do the math and figure out the weekly deficit. Some people do that because they like to maybe eat more on the weekends or whatever, but regardless, you don't want to go into a huge deficit right off the bat. Now, number 12 is kind of more of a personal preference for me, but I have found that intermittent fasting-ish kind of helps me personally. I don't stick to any hard rules with it, but I only eat 2 larger meals a day, and I don't eat my first meal until around noonish. I don't have a cutoff time necessarily, but I do try to not eat super late at night. But I feel like this has helped me with just, for one, I've always kind of struggled with not knowing what to eat. Like, having to come up with 3 different meals a day is just kind of overwhelming for me, because I honestly am a picky eater. So finding recipes and foods that I enjoy eating and that I can eat in a calorie deficit can be challenging at times. So for me, I prefer to just have 2 meals to think about, and usually for my first meal, I pretty much eat almost the same thing every day, so it makes it easier for me. But that is, again, just my personal preference. Number 13, in general, you should be trying to eat as much as you can while still losing weight. That is kind of what I like to keep in mind. While you could cut your calories again more dramatically to make the weight come off more quickly, that ultimately is not going to be as sustainable as eating more, feeling more satiated, and losing weight at a slower but more sustainable rate. Number 14, eat foods you enjoy every single day. If you have a sweet tooth, like myself, I eat dessert every single night. And I'm gonna be quite honest here. For a lot of the nights and for most of my journey this year, my go-to dessert is Pop-Tarts. And that sounds maybe weird to some people, but for me, I can fit it in my calorie deficit. And there's something I look forward to having at night and for dessert. So I fit it into my day and I look forward to it. And I think that's important. You don't want to just force yourself to eat a bunch of foods that are, healthy, but that you don't thoroughly enjoy. Which brings us to number 15. There is no such thing as a bad food. I personally, in the past, have made the mistake of kind of looking at foods as good or bad and kind of labeling them, and I think a lot of that kind of also contributed to some of my more disordered eating tendencies in the past, and like binge eating and stuff, because I would have certain foods that I would not allow myself to eat, and so whenever I would crash and burn on my diet, I would binge on these foods that were like off limits, because in my mind it's always like kind of the Last Supper mentality, like, oh, I'm never gonna be able to eat Oreos again, so I need to eat this whole freaking sleeve of Oreos right now. Nowadays, I don't put a label on food. I can and I do eat literally anything I want, and I don't make it like a thing, because if I make it a thing to where that particular food is off limits, and if it's something I am craving, then I am going to go overboard. So I stay away from labeling foods good or bad. Everything in moderation. Number 16, the best diet is the one you can stick to. And this is gonna be different for every single person. So that's why I don't really like to recommend specific diets or even recommend doing what I do. Like, everyone is different. Everyone has different tastes, different preferences, different cultures. So truly the best diet is the one that you can stick to, and not just for a couple of weeks, but ultimately for the rest of your life is the end all be all goal, really. Number 17 is more specifically for my GLP-1 peeps. And that is that it is okay to kind of ride the wave of your GLP-1 medication. And basically what that means is it's okay to eat less if you are not hungry. And that's something I struggled with, especially in the beginning, is kind of getting used to that idea that if I'm not hungry, I don't need to force myself to hit a specific calorie goal every day, because that's how I used to think. And in reality, that's not the case. You can eat less on certain days if you're not hungry, and if there are days you are more hungry, it's okay to eat a little more. And so again, it kind of comes back to looking at your weekly calories versus daily calories sometimes, and kind of playing with it. If, again, calories is something you track, which not everyone does, but that's what I do. So number 18, drink your motherfucking water. But you already knew that. Number 19, for all of you dehydrated people, drink your electrolytes as well. And especially if you are on a GLP-1 medication, electrolytes are so very important. Number 20 is that muscle burns more calories than fat at rest. So it is super important to start weight training right off the bat. You really want to try to maintain and even gain as much muscle as you can. When you are on a weight loss journey and you lose a large amount of weight quickly, it can cause muscle loss, and so you definitely want to incorporate weight training into your workout routine. That being said, for number 21, when you are starting to get into weight training, a good rule of thumb is you want to do anywhere from 3 to 4 different exercises or machines if you're going to a gym. And on those 3 to 4 different machines or exercises, you want to do 3 to 4 sets of anywhere from 8 to 12 reps. And that, obviously, if you're just starting out, start at the lower end of that range and work your way up. That is just a good rule of thumb when it comes to trying to figure out a good weight training routine. Now, for number 22, this kind of ties into that as well, but basically once you find a good routine, a weight training routine, you want to stick to that routine and do the same exercises for a good period of time in order to see progress in those specific muscle groups that you're working on. You want to try to incorporate progressive overloading, which is basically just adding on weight and reps gradually as you gain strength, and this is where you are going to see changes and again just progress in whatever muscles you are trying to grow or strengthen. So you don't want to go to the gym one week, do a certain set of exercises, and then switch it up the next week. You want to be kind of consistent, doing the same couple of exercises week after week. Number 23 is to aim for progress, not perfection. I think it's really important to not get trapped in that all or nothing mentality where you feel like you have to do everything 100% perfect. Otherwise, you mess up, you have a bad day, you have a cheat meal or a cheat day, and you think, what's the point? I ruined everything for the week. I'll just start over on Monday. Do not get trapped in that mindset, because it is something I struggled with for years, and it led me to yo-yo diet for years. And ultimately that led me to get to a point where I put on all the weight that I did, because every time I would mess up, I would feel defeated and I would feel like the rest of the week was ruined. So therefore, I'm just gonna go off the deep end and, binge for the rest of the week. And we will start over on Monday. Just remember that your body has no sense of time or what day of the week it is. So if you feel that you mess up or you overate or whatever, honestly, just move on. Do not let it turn into something more than what it is. You get back on track the very next day or the very next meal, and you move on. Number 24 is to learn to rely on habits when you are lacking motivation. And this is something that I often have to do because, quite frankly, I am not always motivated in my weight loss journey. Like, there are days, there are even weeks where I feel very unmotivated to get up and go to the gym, or to weigh out my food or track my calories. There are days where I just want to rot on the couch and eat popcorn and, binge watch Netflix. But I have built up the habit of going to the gym, of tracking my food, just all these little habits, all these things that I do on a daily basis. After you've done them for a while, it almost becomes easier to just do them because you don't have to think about it, because it's a habit. So you definitely want to focus on building sustainable, healthy habits that will get you through those hard times when you are feeling very unmotivated. Number 25 is something that I believe wholeheartedly, and that is everyone should enjoy birthdays, holidays, special occasions. I will say, if you find yourself to be somebody who particularly struggles with food on the holidays and birthdays and things, and you are starting out in your journey and you just feel like you don't have the willpower to allow yourself to eat certain things, then maybe this isn't for you. But for me, as someone who does not restrict foods, and also someone who has dealt with binge eating in the past, when I try to restrict myself, I have found that allowing myself to enjoy special occasions and eat the cake at the birthday party, it's fine. And I think that, you know, in reality, part of being on a long-term weight loss journey is realizing that these times of the year are gonna happen every year. And so unless you can learn how to still enjoy these occasions without letting them derail you, then again, it's like, how sustainable can your lifestyle change be if it excludes living life? So yeah, I definitely think changing your mindset around food on holidays and birthdays and special occasions throughout the year it's important for long-term sustainability. Number 26 is to reflect on non-scale victories often. I personally try to reflect on at least one non-scale victory every week in my weekly weigh-in videos, but I think especially when you are struggling with the scale and or just not seeing it move the way you want it to, it can be very beneficial to look at other measures of success. Number 27 is to remember that ultimately this is a lifestyle change that you want to be able to commit to for the rest of your life. So going on a weight loss journey, if you want to see long-term sustainable results, you have to make lifestyle modifications that you can stick to. And everyone is different, so there may be things that one person does that just won't work for you, and that's okay. You just need to find what things you can commit to, what things work for you, and remember that this is a long game. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Number 28, do not compare your journey to anyone else's, especially in today's world with social media and weight loss influencers, myself included. It is really easy to get into a negative mindset when you start comparing your journey to somebody maybe that you follow on social media. And that is because we are all different, and even if you have a similar body shape or you're a similar size to a particular person and you lose the same amount of weight that they do, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll get the same results that they have. Maybe you'll look a little different, and so it's just important to remember that we are all different, and while it is great to be inspired by people who are on weight loss journeys, and ultimately that is my goal in sharing my journey, is I want to be a source of inspiration, but I never want anyone to compare themselves and their journeys to mine, because again, we are all different, and comparison is the thief of joy. And for number 29, consistency will always yield results. this is something that I struggled to believe for many years when I struggled to remain consistent. And once I remained consistent, I was able to see that it is the truth. And so it doesn't matter what methods you are using to lose weight, to gain muscle, to get your health in order. If you stay consistent in those things, and they are things you can remain consistent in for long periods of time, your body will change, your health will improve, and you will see changes. It just takes time. Other than that, guys, I appreciate y'all for tuning in. If you have not subscribed, please consider. I would love to have you here as I continue to share my weight loss journey to lose another 100 pounds. And also I will leave my TikTok down in the description as always. As far as an emoji for the week, if you made it this far, leave a birthday cake down in the comments to let me know. And yeah, I appreciate you guys, and I will see y'all in my next one.